Hi, friends. Welcome to Getting Your Real Estate Life Together. I'm Tracy Hicks with All Things Real Estate. And on today's podcast, I have Eric Holmes, who is another Dwell agent. I don't think I've ever interviewed so many of our own agents than I have, but he wants to retaliate against Christy in her last podcast. So I'm going to give him the opportunity to explain himself, Tablegate. But Eric, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thanks. Good to be here. It's my first podcast.
I know. I love doing that because actually, you know what? Every podcast for me feels like a first podcast because it's always different or whatever. And you think you have it down. And it's like, I would assume actors and like people on TV, they still get nervous going out or whatever. It's the same thing with podcasts. So everyone feels like a new one for me as well. Okay. So Eric, tell us who you are, how long you've been a realtor, where do you live? Not like your address, but what city you live in, all that good stuff. Tell us about you.
Yeah, Eric Holmes. I've been working in real estate for 15 years now. I also have a full-time job at Adidas that I've been doing for 20 years now. So I am doing both. And I just kind of started real estate as a side hustle years ago when we were flipping houses with my father-in-law. And I couldn't believe what we were paying on the commission check. I was like, oh my gosh, we just paid $14,000 to this lady.
That was 15 years ago.
Yeah, and it was crazy. And all of the descriptions were in capital letters, The pictures were horrible. I was just like, I could do this. And it's kind of a passion. It grew from like a family thing to just a passion that I've always had. And I just kind of kept going with it.
That's so cool. Now, was it weird or different when you're just getting into it and it's already been kind of a family thing and like selling your own flips or your families? Like, was that more pressure or was it easier or how do you remember? I mean, it was a long time ago, but.
Yeah, great question. It was more pressure. There's always been a kind of a family vibe to what we've done. Just my father-in-law always had houses he was flipping, and his partner was a real estate agent, Mark Radford, who's been in the business forever.
Yeah.
And so I kind of stepped in on his business a little bit, which I thought was a little tough, but I think he was understanding. And then, Heather's family, like her sisters weren't always on board with, who's doing what and who's flipping what. And there's always a little bit of family tension on making a family business out of it. And then who's paying for the real estate agent, who's paying for the supplies, who's paying for the contractors. So it's been a little bit turbulent, in the beginning, but we've kind of gone separate ways and we've done less and less flipping with the family and more, it's grown into more Adidas people that I've serviced more recently. So.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about that. Like you have a full-time job at Adidas and you're a full-time realtor too, pretty much. Like how do you, and I'm sure it's evolved over the years, like you've gotten your systems down and, a rhythm or whatever, but how do you balance that and juggle it so that, because realtors already are juggling and making sure everybody's, okay and whatnot, but also you have your Adidas job as well. So like, what do you sleep 2 hours a night or something?
No, I sleep great. I'll also throw on top of that my family. So I have my wife, Heather, shout out to the kids, Jake,
Hey.
and Matthew. Boys, what's up?
They better listen.
Podcast. I love my family. So yes, that's another job on top of that with football and baseball and soccer and all of that.
Right, 3 boys.
Yeah, 3 boys. But
Mother.
yeah, and I have a lot of stuff. So I can't do it without my boys, my wife, my mother-in-law, father-in-law, Pete and Joyce. What's up? Sorry, a lot of shout outs there.
I love it.
But yeah, I'm with Christy. So Christy and I are a team, in real estate at Dwell. And we've been a team for, I think, 12 years now.
Yep.
I just started from my business was growing, her business was growing. We were trying to catch everything ourselves and just couldn't do it. And I was like, Christy, I need a hand. And then she was like, hey, I got some buyers over here. It started east side, west side, because she was in southwest. I was in northeast. And just showing buyers houses on the weekends was like, hey, I got these people that want to look at a house right by your house. Can you just show them real quick?
That's right.
Sure. Yeah. And then I was like, I got some people in Southwest. They want to see a house right by your house. It just happened to line up. So like John Topple, who was an Adidas employee at the time, bought a house a block away from Christy's house. And I was like, hey, just show him one house, please. And then sure enough, he liked it and wanted to buy it. I'm like, okay, so let's figure out how do we work this now? Because I'm going to have you do all the paperwork on it. And then we're like, do we just team up? And she's like, sure. I mean, like she said, we have nothing in writing. We have no plan. We just organically kind of came together and started working together, and it's just been awesome.
Yeah.
What I noticed in her was that she is amazing at everything she does. Great communicator, great with transactions, great with remembering everything, great with organization, great with buyers, just a great person to talk to. Mm-hmm. I'm really short and sweet. Not really sweet, but like short. I don't talk a ton, so this is new for me. But I just found Christy to be an amazing person and a great partner. And I just like grabbed a hold. I'm like, hey, can I just hold on to your coattails and you just guide this ship? And so we've kind of worked it together, but there's times where she takes the lead. Sometimes I take the lead, and it just kind of goes with the buyers or the sellers, whoever is closer to them kind of takes over. So
yeah. Yeah. And I love that that it was organic. And I think a lot of realtors, that happens a lot more than they think. And I think that, part of the stress, especially you get to a point in your business where you need help, but then you're like, you don't want to let go. And then you don't, there's just all these, it's harder to make that jump to have a partner or a team or whatever you want to call it. And then so when it happens naturally like that, that's just the best way for it to happen, because then it just kind of organically grows into what it does. And just like you said, now you guys, is it still just the two of you, or you still have some help sometimes too?
Shout out to Kristen Noreen as well. So Kristen's on the team. And over the years, we've had other people come in. Peter Hong has come in.
Yeah.
And we've had a few other ones come in. Every time we sell a house to someone, they're like, real estate seems cool. I would like to try it. So I sold Peter a house, or he sold his house and sold him another house. And he's like, I want to try this. And so we got him on the team, and he was another Adidas guy.
Yeah.
And then he's come and since gone. But I think everyone sees it like, this is kind of cool. Everyone at some point in their life has said, I want to try real estate. There's not a single person that says, oh, I don't think that's cool. Everyone loves houses. Everyone loves house shopping. I mean, you go through the process. Some people have bad experiences or good experiences, but I think that it's so fun, and it's so, who doesn't love watching HGTV, like it's similar to that, but in real life. And so I think that we've always invited other people to our team because we thrive on just having people around to help out.
Yeah. And you and Christy have like a similar message, and you're both really similar in your business practices and how you relate to people and whatnot. So you do make a great team, which is why you guys are still together as a team 12, 13 years later. Okay. So how are you juggling? And you also moved, you said earlier that you lived in Northeast Portland, and then you moved like 20, 30 minutes. Well, it's probably like 20 minutes outside of Portland. And then when you first moved, you and I, we were chatting about something, and you were like, I've been Ubering to work, and I do all my real estate business in the Uber on the way to your Adidas job. So are you still doing that? And like, how are you juggling the full-time job with full-time realtoring?
Yeah, no, great question. No, I'm not still Ubering or lifting. They switched to Lyft. I don't think anyone does that anymore, can you? I think with masks on, it might be still a thing. But Adidas was providing this service where they wanted less cars in the village because they were doing a construction project and there wasn't a lot of parking. And so they were paying. Well, so yeah, I moved to Lake Oswego from Northeast Portland right around the time their son was starting kindergarten. So we wanted to kind of come down here for the schools, which a lot of people do when it comes to that time, which we've been super thrilled with. We lucked out so much. So we had bought a house down here to flip. And halfway through, we're like, gosh, this is kind of growing on us. We kind of like it. And then the more we got into it, the more like, could we move down here? Because we thought we were set in Northeast. We were in a house that we loved on like 25th and Prescott right there. And we loved it. I mean, when I remember moving in, I was like, this is the house we're going to die in. Isn't that weird? Like we were totally there forever. But things changed, and we ended up, working on a house down here, and we started falling in love with it. And then it was just more quiet. I think Portland's got a little bit loud, a little bit busy. And it just, when you come down to Lake Oswego, it just felt a little more calm. And every time we came down, it felt a little more like home, and we started meeting some of the neighbors. I think it was a great decision. I mean, I think some things are meant to be, and this is one of those things, because we have had just a great experience down here. We love all of our neighbors. Shout out to all you guys, because I'm going to pass this podcast along to everyone.
Yeah. You better.
But yeah, no, I think so. How I do it. Yeah. So most people, when they're buying houses, do it on lunchtime, they do it after work, they do it on weekends. So all of my real estate stuff doesn't really overlap too much. It's mostly just lunchtime. People from Adidas know I work at Adidas, so they're pretty flexible with like, hey, let's go at lunch, or let's go after work, or let's go on the weekend. And I do it then. We don't take on it. We're not a huge group. We don't take on a ton of buyers or sellers. So it's fairly manageable.
Right.
But yeah, mostly just friends and family. That's the way we kind of kept our business, is just people that we like hanging out with. And it's usually a good time for everyone, I think.
Yeah. And you've mentioned a couple of times that you've sold a lot of houses to your Adidas coworkers. So that has to be such a great source of referral business, because you guys are always talking to each other, I'm sure. And of course, you're going to talk about real estate stuff. It's not like you have to remind them all the time. Like, are you like your department's realtor? Like,
I wish.
You're the area you work in, like you're the go-to guy.
Somewhat for some of the groups. Yeah. Not for everyone. I mean, Alex Kelly didn't use me, which is fine. Alex, don't worry about it. We're still friends. But yeah, people at Adidas know that I do it. And it's got to be a dozen people that I've sold houses to now, or sold their house over the years. And now it's been, a lot of people come in young and then they get married and start a family and then they want a little bigger house. And I do kind of specialize in North Portland, Northeast Portland there. I'm really familiar with those neighborhoods and that's been fun to work in. I mean, there's so much potential there in North Portland, such a fun area.
Yeah. And a lot is changing. And for those of you that are listening that are not in Portland, that is where Adidas headquarters is at. In that.
Yeah. Which is another thing. So like going to show houses, it's like 5 minutes away from there. I literally walked from Adidas to show a house after work one night. It's like, oh, I'll just walk. It's up the street. So it's just,
Nice.
people want to live close to work, which is great. So.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So we talked a little bit about Northeast and well, let's just get it out of the way. Tablegate. So Christy was on our podcast. Well, it doesn't really matter because I don't know what order the podcasts are in, but go find Christy Marshall, her podcast that we did with her. We talked about you were selling a house in Northeast, but what we didn't mention was that it was the family home. And so tell us a little bit about, well, like that whole experience, like obviously you had connections. It was did you grow up in that house?
No. So I actually had sold that house. It's Heather's parents and my wife's parents' house.
Okay.
There's a guy that was doing some real estate wholesale stuff and we had bought a house from him and then we flipped a house with him. And then this was another house that came up. So it was just kind of an off market deal.
Okay.
And it needed a ton of work, but it was a cool old house. And so Pete and Joyce at the time, I don't even know if they thought they were going to move into it at the time because they had built their own new house on 26 in Alberta. It was great right there by Cha-Cha-Cha and all that. It was a great spot, but they started working on it. And I think they felt because it's such a cool old house.
Yeah.
Great bones, but they ended up dropping, probably 200,000 to 300,000 into it to redo the basement and they redid the upstairs. Right. They took 2 bedrooms and made a master suite and redid all the, there was a huge octopus furnace in the basement and they moved it all aside and
yeah,
it became a sweet house. And so I think they fell in love with it and moved in and really liked it there. And so they lived there for, 6-7 years.
Okay.
And then father-in-law's health is declining a little bit. And so we wanted to get him a little closer to help him out to a 1 level because there's a lot of stairs in that house as an old house.
Yep.
He's now in a 1 level in West Lynn, real close by, 2.5 miles exactly from my doorstep when I run. So I can run a nice 5-mile loop and go say hi and back, which is good.
Nice.
Yeah, but they're down here now and that's been nice to have them close by and the kids enjoy going over to see their grandparents more often now.
Of course. And I'm sure that helps too with all of your jobs and, all that good stuff. Okay. So you guys staged the house.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Tablegate. Back to Tablegate. The house is old Portland style, it's very old, like craftsman style. And the table just looked a little too modern. And then there was a black table with brown chairs. And I'm not a design guy. I don't know what I'm talking about. But to me, I was like, that's not the table I had picked because I'd had so many family dinners at that table and I knew what my mother-in-law had vision for the house and all the new stuff was not exact. So we took all her stuff out, restaged it, and it wasn't exact. She was like, it just felt like it wasn't my house. And then, so I was getting from the defensive side of like wanting it to look like my mother-in-law.
Yeah.
She had so much connection to that house.
Yeah.
So the table and chairs are just not her style. And it wasn't my style, I guess. But I don't know. What do I know on style? Apparently it was someone's style because they ended up selling the house. Braylon sold the house. So Braylon, who we used to work with, still work with on different transactions now.
Yeah.
Was the buyer's agent, which is always great to see him.
But yeah, you were like fixated. And, a couple things. It was a family house, obviously. And it was your family had worked on it and you'd been in it. And just like you said, family dinners and whatnot. But sometimes that's what we do as realtors too. Like you just get fixated on one thing and don't see the bigger picture, but you're like honing in on this one thing. And Christy was like, it's okay. The house is still going to sell. The table is fine. And it just took that for it to kind of break loose for you, for it to be like, oh my gosh, I don't need to stress out about this table. But that is, and also too, realtors a lot of time, when they buy or sell their own stuff and they're like, oh, it's so good to go through this, every once in a while, because then you can relate to your clients a little bit better. I mean, obviously we know what they're going through as, realtors, but still it's different when you're the one that's in it and you just get stuck on certain little things. And it's like, and that house sold for quite a bit over for what you had it listed at as well. It must've been the table, like the table sold the house.
Yeah, no, I think that you're right. Because to your point, like whenever we run into something with Christy, like there'll be a problem that I can't solve. And it's instantly I have that someone to call. I'm like, hey, what's going on? I can't figure this out. And she's like, well, just do this. I'm like, oh, that makes a ton. There's just simple things that you just get stuck on, like the table or like, how do I write this addendum to make sense? And you have someone to run it by, and I have some people that work independently and they call me sometimes like, hey, what would you do about this? Because they don't have a team. I couldn't do it without a team. I couldn't do it without Christy.
Right.
Just because we balance each other out and then pick up some of that slack and just have, if there's a difficult situation, sometimes you can sub out, and have someone sub in. And it's just been nice to have that sort of situation as well.
Right. And you've talked a little bit about after a certain amount of years, you you're buying and selling with clients multiple times. And before we got on the podcast, I always chat about, okay, what do we want to make sure that we're talking about and hitting on? And you had mentioned a client of yours. And I think it's really cool because, relationships and referrals, and just like you said, you work with people that you know and that you want to work with and that you have relationships with. And that is always important. And I think realtors, and obviously if a deal comes your way, well, it's probably going to be a referral. There's not a lot of stranger clients is what I call them when they're just random and you don't know them. But you talked about one of your clients did you sell his house, or you sold the house to him, right? And you just recently sold it. Is that right?
Yeah. So Max Griffin, who works at Adidas. So I hired Max at Adidas when he was fresh out of college, I think, at UCLA. He played soccer, an amazing athlete, amazing person. And I was like, this guy's awesome. Let's get him up here. And so Max worked in testing. So I work in Adidas footwear testing, and he came in to do some testing to start off some soccer testing here in the US, which was great. Football testing. When he came up in, he wanted to eventually buy a house. And actually his brother moved to town to be an assistant coach at UP, and I sold him a house too. So it's just a whole family thing. He came up here he was here probably 5 years-ish. Like he moved his way up to the company. He was a great communications person and did a bunch of video stuff for our company and did a lot of diversity and inclusion stuff for Adidas. He's just amazing. And through that, he got an opportunity to work for Target, now doing some communication directing stuff over there. So sad to see him go. But when he left, I sold his house for him. But he started a podcast. So that's what I was telling you, is like the podcast I've been listening to that I wanted to plug for this one is Your Black Friend by Max Griffin. He just finished up his first season, and it's amazing. He's an amazing person for one, but it's just cool conversations about having Black friends. And it's just like, he said that 75% of white people don't have a Black friend. So he's framing it in that situation, like, if you don't have a Black friend, let me be your Black friend. And he is my Black friend. So I want everyone to be his Black friend. Love it. It's just a cool podcast, cool question and answer, just kind of very relevant to what's going on right now. And it's just an amazing listen. So I wanted to plug it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. It's called Your Black Friend. And what's Max's last name?
Maxwell Griffin.
Maxwell Griffin. That's awesome. Okay. So obviously, not everybody I'll admit, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. I do them. And I started the podcast because I wanted to talk to realtors about their business and, and have not always been me talking about how to market yourself and what you should be doing in your business, but to hear from other realtors because not everything works for everyone, right? Like not everybody is door knocking, or not everybody is doing podcasts, or not, you got to do what works for you. How do you market yourself? Like you and I don't talk a lot about this because I feel like you just got done telling me that, most of your business is referral, and then so many is coming from Adidas. Like, it just seems like business is just naturally coming to you. But what do you guys do for your marketing? And especially, and Christy, I want to say too, also lives in Colorado. So how long ago did she move to Colorado?
Gosh, 2 years now.
Yeah. And you guys are still teaming up, and it actually still works just as well. Like, it doesn't even seem like, well, maybe it does to you a little more than me, but it doesn't seem like she moved because she's still around.
It works. I mean, she's back every 4 to 5 weeks. So I see her, every other month just about, and she'll come by. I think that's our marketing, is that when she comes to town, she's here on a mission to just go see people. Like, not a marketing trip, but like, I want to catch up with my friends who I haven't seen and get drinks. A lot of it's just getting drinks with friends, and then it just grows from there. And people at Adidas know that I do it. And so, hey, I got a friend that's doing that, like Max before he left, gave another guy, Rich, my number. And so Rich and I we just got onto a house on Monday, Rich and Shayna, shout out to them as well. That's the thing, is this market, we've been struggling for 2 months to find them a house, every weekend putting offers out and just getting rejected. And to the point where I went and called Renee, our friend Renee Spears, who also has a podcast, the Bundology podcast. And we manifested together. I'm like, listen, because I was telling Chrissy, hey, I need some help. So she sent me a gift card to Renee. And this is what Chrissy's great at. She's a great gifter. She's a great person to connect people. I talked to Renee for an hour. She gave me ideas about everything from health issues, my father-in-law, to real estate stuff. And she's like, how are you going into these offers? And I'm like, well, I'm going in thinking we're going to get rejected, Renee, because there's 10 offers and, I don't feel like we have the strongest cash position. I don't think we have the biggest down payment. I don't think we have the biggest gap coverage. I don't think we have the, we're not going to waive every repair. So she's like, well, you need to go into it with a positive. You need to visualize it happening. You need to visualize it being accepted. And I was like, okay, let's start. So I started taking that seriously. And on this it was a house, but I didn't think I started in that mindset of, we're not going to get this house, but we came back to it. And I took it as like, okay, we're going to keep trying. So we readjusted our offer and we resubmitted. She said, before you hit submit, really positively think behind that click of energy before you push send of like, this is going to be accepted. This is, so it just, I think there's something to it because our mindset came through and we ended up getting the house and they're thrilled. I'm thrilled. The seller's thrilled. So I think everything works out. And I do believe there is something behind Renee's manifestation of like just believing and getting behind something. When you put something into the universe, it kind of lines up and will follow.
I love that. And it was so intentional. Like, I think that's part of it
Yeah.
too, because it's obviously hard to do that all day long. But for you to stop yourself real quick before, because you're in a rush to get the offer out or whatever, and you pause. And I totally would have never in a million years thought that you would have met with Renee. I think that is so awesome that you totally thought outside the box for you. And you probably wouldn't have, I don't, maybe you wouldn't have done it if Christy didn't give you a gift card, but how awesome that Christy thought of you in that way, that you would totally benefit from that. And then you didn't just throw it in a drawer and not use it. You did it. I think that's amazing. And Renee is really, really great. I totally do that too, where I'll just like, okay, I need a session or whatever. I just need to, just clear your head even, or just like, you just kind of spew everything that you're thinking and feeling just like you just did. And then she gets to just come back and be like, well, have you thought of doing it this way or what? And it's like, oh my God, I would have never thought of that, because you're so in it, you're just in the thick of it, especially when it comes to your clients. You want to fight so hard for them. And I think a lot of us right now are feeling that, just the pressure. And I say us, I'm not realtoring right now. But I feel everybody's pain where there's no inventory and people are getting bid out. And, there's ebbs and flows in real estate, and it's going to flip around and be the other way around at some point too. But I love all the lessons that people are learning right now. And I just hope that they continue to carry that on through their business, and, and that you're not just doing it for that one deal, but now you're probably
I also want to call out, there is a huge sense of community right now. I think everyone's going through the same struggles of having rejected offers. And I was able to reach out to Noelle Jackson. I'm not sure if you know her well, but I called her up and I was like, Noelle, what do I do in this situation? And we're not even, on a same real estate team or company, or she just put an offer in on a different house. And I was talking her through it. And I was like, can I run something else by you? And she's like, sure, go for it. And so we chatted for half an hour and it was great. And then she's like, I was talking to Gavin about this, Gavin Shetler the other day about this. I'm like, no way, Gavin. Then sure enough, like a week later, Gavin wrote an offer on another house we had listed. He called me. I was like, hey, what is it going to take to get this house? I'm like, buddy, I don't know. It's just like, please put an offer in, we'll see if it happens. And then he put an offer in, boom, we took it and it all worked out. And so I don't know if it's just the universe lining things up or things happen for a reason, but I took a pause, talked to Noelle just randomly, and she mentioned Gavin, and then Gavin a week later wrote an offer on a house. And it was just like, I was like, this is so weird that this all fell into place like this. But I think everyone is reaching out to everyone as a real estate community and just supporting everyone. When I see that on the Facebook, the Masters of Real Estate Facebook page where people are supporting each other, it's just nice to see. I feel like there's a little bit of a shift of less competition and more community. And it feels good to me to have it more that way, for sure.
Yeah. And, it's one of those silver lining things where things are really tough. And I think you're exactly right. People are thinking about, okay, we're all in the same boat, and so it's not like somebody can have a complaint that everybody else is like, yeah, we're all in it too, and it's like, I think you're right. There has been a shift in how people are feeling and thinking. And I love, our real estate community. And I hope that everybody finds that too, because not everybody has that or even thinks about it, but you just proved a really good point that you're all going to work together at some point, probably. You never know. You write an offer on somebody else's listing or vice versa. And so it is important to have a good real estate community. And I don't think we think about that enough. So I think you're right. And then also Christy sent you something today.
She did. Yeah, she saw, well, in Colorado, it's only 70 degrees. And so she saw that it was 95 here and we're just switching places, but she sent me ice cream sandwiches for the kids. Like, she's just so thoughtful and such a good gifter. And I always rely on her for that, like post-closing, because my gifts are lame, terrible. I try and do something, but hers are always so, I'm like, oh my God, that was a great idea. How'd you even think of that? So if you're ever looking for great gift ideas, reach out to Christy. She can hook you up with it.
Right. She'll have all kinds of ideas.
Where she said I was a terrible person for this table comment and in her podcast, I've said nothing but nice things about her. I adore her as a partner and she is awesome to work with. And I'm a lucky guy to have her as a partner for sure.
And she feels the same about you. I know she does.
I hope.
She does too. But, I love that you guys also balance each other out. And I think that's what makes a good partnership. And Chris and I are the same, owning Dwell together. It works, and it's worked for so long and so effortlessly because of that relationship. Not everybody is for everyone. There are partnerships that don't work out, and finding your person, like, you tend to stick with them for a long time, and balancing each other out in terms of, Christy's really good at that. And then you've got all the things that you're good at, but naturally you just kind of go to each other for those things without even having to think about it. And I think that's also what makes a great partnership. Is there anything else in like your team and how you guys operate that really helps you in your business that we missed? I feel like there's something else and
I think that there's the
yeah.
abundance piece of it. Like she did a big abundance thing, and it was just like the more you give, the more you get. And she sent me a book, actually, The Go Giver. So I read that early pandemic, and I've passed that along to some people. But it is true. Like the more you give to other people without the expectation of return is how happiness spreads. And so I think we always try to do it out of like just being happy, friendly people and giving of ourselves and our time and our expertise to help other people. And hopefully that comes back around. And I mean, we've never had a set split for anything. Not a single transaction's ever been the same. And so we've always been like, well, you want 60-40 in this one, 70-30? What do you want to do, 50-50? We've always just done whatever.
Every transaction is different.
Every transaction is different. We never had a set thing. And we've even got like, oh, hey, you bought some stuff on this one for the gift. Let's just throw yourself another 10% or whatever. It all comes back to me. Like there's deals I haven't done a single thing of for, and she's sent me money on. And there's things she hasn't done a ton of stuff on, and I've sent her money for. And it's just, it all balances out in the end. And as long as everyone's having fun and we're still enjoying it, then we're rolling. So.
Yeah, that's so crazy. Like, I'm sure other people do it that way, but I love that you guys do what works for you and not what everybody tells you how you should build a team or this is what you should do or any of that. And taking bits and pieces of that. And I'm always saying that to people, like, if realtors are giving you how they do it, that's what works for them. You know, take the parts out that would work for you, but don't try to recreate that, especially if it's not who you are as a person. Like I always use the pop buys and I hate that I do that, but you know, not everybody can do, you know, door knocking or pop buys. Like if, just like you said, if you know you're not going to do it, you're not going to do it. You know, if you put it out there that you're like, I hate doing this, I don't want to do it, and you're not going to do it. So do the things that work for you. And I love that, you know, also too, Christy take the lead on that. And that is super helpful for you as well, you know, and she gets to do stuff that she loves to do. And that's what makes a great partnership. So I love watching you guys work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel, you know, and I also feel too, that sense of community just between the two of you as well. And I think that that's important. Everybody's team and partnership, all that is going to look different. So, you know, again, do what works for you. So do you consider yourself a part-time realtor or a full-time realtor? Because I wanted to make sure that we mention that because you do work really hard on both sides. Obviously, we don't want Adidas thinking that you're slacking on the job and vice versa, you know,
No.
But I don't think you've ever had that like, it doesn't seem like that's a thing.
I've never really put a title on it of part-time. I hustle is what I always say is I hustle. Like I get shit done. So the Adidas stuff comes first, obviously. The real estate stuff always fits in where it can. And I would say probably part-time makes more sense for that. But I never really put a label on. I definitely don't do it full-time. So yeah. I work hard at it and I enjoy it. And I try and just get everything done. You know, it's hard. Yeah. It's a juggle, but it all falls into place.
Do you think you're going to leave it this way for a long time? Because I know there's been points in time where you're like, oh, do I want a realtor full time or vice versa? But you don't think that far ahead, or you just kind of
I asked Renee that too. But no, I love Adidas. Like I've always been an Adidas guy. Like growing up, I played soccer. I wore Adidas stuff. I had Adidas shirts in every color. I wore Copas. I just was a soccer guy, and I always wanted to work at Adidas. And so, like when you ask me, like, what do I want to do? I test running shoes, and I love to run. And so, like, if there's a job for me that I would love, it'd be testing running shoes. And so, I love what I do at Adidas, and I've always loved it.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to give that up because I do enjoy it, and I have a great group of people that I work with that I'm really close with, and we have a lot of fun together. And then I love real estate too, and I can do both. I mean, it's not to me either or do one or the other. What do you want to do? I like doing both, and so I'm just going to keep doing both as long as
both.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so awesome. You know, also with the team thing, I mean, you have carved out obviously time for your family and the boys, and, you know, you moved to Lake Oswego, and yes, there is a lake in Lake Oswego and you have a boat, and I see you, you know, doing all that stuff. I just think it's so awesome. And it seems effortless in a way, you know, it's just been working for you. And I think it's because of what you just said. You love both jobs, you know, you love doing both of the things. So yeah, why not keep just doing it that way?
Yeah. I mean, I've got it really good, and I've just been lucky, and I have a great family and I have great friends. And so I don't know. I'm just thankful for what I have, and yeah, everything's been working well. So I'm just gonna keep rolling.
You're like, yeah, why would I don't want to, what is that? You don't want to
rock the boat. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't break what's not broken. Don't fix what's not broken. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
All right, Eric, is there anything else that I missed that we needed to talk about?
No, I defended my table stance. That's what I really wanted to get done here today.
Come on here to do today.
I accomplished my first podcast. Thank you for having me.
Yep. I think you should do a podcast. I tell everybody that, but I think it could be something totally different. It could be about your running or, something, but just that not everybody wants a podcast, obviously, but I love that people don't even think about it. And then they're like, oh, I could do that too. And you can, it's really easy. And like, it doesn't have to be perfect and it doesn't have to be this or that. It just has to work for you. And like I said, being intentional about those things is obviously, you want to have that because we get to a point where we're too old for just willy-nilly doing stuff, but still.
Well, between you and me, this is the best podcast I've ever been on. So thank you.
Until your next one. Are you going to be on your Black Friend?
I don't know.
Your Black Friend podcast?
I'm putting it out there. Max, put me on, buddy.
You're available for guest spots right now. All right, Eric. So if you're ever looking for a realtor in Portland, the Holmes Marshall team.
Marshall Holmes team. Either way.
Marshall Holmes team. I was like, I think I just said that. Flip flop. And then where can people find you? Are you a social media guy?
No, we have a Marshall Holmes team Instagram, but that's about it. And Marshall Holmes on Facebook too, but mostly just call me.
Yep. You gonna put your phone number on there?
Yeah, sure.
I will put your email in there so people can email you.
Yeah, most people that we work with, we already know. So
yeah.
But I'm open to new business. Holler at me.
Yep. Holla. Or if you want Eric to be a guest on your podcast, he will do that too. All right, Eric. Thanks for being on.
Thanks, Tracy.